Good afternoon, everyone. The time is 1:31. We'll begin our council meeting. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Baines. Brandow. Here. Bredefeld. Here. Capriolio. Here. Chavez.
Here.
Soria. And Council President Olivia.
Here. At this time, we'll have an invocation by Pastor Jerry Voss of the Millbrook Presbyterian Church, followed by a Pledge of Allegiance.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity. Let us pray. Lord, to pray is to assume that we are talking to a living God. Anything else would be irrational. And you are the God of Abraham and Sarah. You are the God of Israel, the sovereign of the universe, the God who sent his Son, Jesus Christ, to reconcile creation to himself. And so, Lord, here we are today, and we pray as an expression of gratitude and an expression of need. And Lord, we are grateful because you are good and you continue to bless us, and we give you praise. But Lord, we're here also in expressing our needs, for we are a needy people in many, many ways. And so it is your prophets and your apostles who remind us to pray for the city in which we live, to pray for those who rule and guide us. And Lord, we pray in very specific terms that your word and your spirit would capture our hearts and our minds so that we may please you. And Lord, we would want to acknowledge that too often our prayers simply treat you as some cosmic vending machine where we have our expectations and ignore your demands. Forgive us. May we repent of our egocentric ways of thinking. Father, we pray for justice here in our city and in our county. We pray, Lord, for those who are poor, for you have a special compassion for the poor. And yet, Lord, your word reminds us that also the poor have responsibilities. And so help us to understand the dynamic between compassion and human responsibility. And Lord, above all, we ask your ongoing favor, your mercy and your grace on the council as they lead. And may they lead in spirit and in truth. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation. Thank you, Pastor Voss. We now move to the approval of the agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to today's agenda?
I have two changes to today's agenda. The first is item 1A, file number 17137. And I just need to read this into the record. At the request of the Fresno City Employees Association, the new classification in this item is crime data specialist, and it needs to be amended to the title of crime specialist. And then the second change is item 5C. It's removed from the agenda by staff, and that is a joint closed session with the successor agency. So those are all the changes I have.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the agenda. We have a motion. Member Soria, second. Member Capriolio. The screen is clear. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. At this time, we'll now move to ceremonial presentations, and our first one is from Councilmember Bredefeld and Councilmember Capriolio to honor Central Valley Honor Flight Day. Yay, it's okay to clap.
Well, this is a day that I've been looking forward to for a long time, ever since I was elected, because I know one of the nice things we get to do as council members is honor people in our community who have made such a tremendous difference for so many others. And clearly the Central Valley Honor Flight is all of that and much more. I'm proud to be a veteran, a Navy veteran. I'm proud to serve veterans as a psychologist at the VA. My former boss, Al Perry, did a fantastic job as the director at the VA. And he serves veterans, and it really is veterans who make the difference in our society as a whole. We wouldn't have any of the freedoms to congregate today, to work on issues today, First Amendment rights, anything. We can all trace back to the sacrifice of veterans. And so the Central Valley Honor Flight is a tremendous thing, honoring the veterans as they do. So we're going to have a proclamation. We're going to invite a lot of people here. We're going to thank a lot of people for what's happened here with Central Valley Honor Flight. Mr. Perry, Mr. Leffler will come up and talk about the program. I'm going to pass it to my colleague, Councilmember Capriello.
Thank you, sir. Well, good morning. Good morning. All right, this is a great day. This is the day we've been looking forward to for a long time. And, a few days ago, actually on Valentine's Day, I have the privilege and honor of every year going to the VA hospital, Al's former stomping ground, so to speak. And we pass out Valentines, and we wish them a great day, and we listen to their stories. And it's a very moving situation, and I do it every year. So to understand and welcome those heroes and congratulate them is one thing, but we also have to recognize those that work behind the scenes. And those are the people that we want to honor today, and that's all of you here before us this morning, or afternoon, actually. So, in 2013, I had the honor to attend and present a proclamation on the Welcome Home Flight. Paul was there, and Bruce, and our fearless leader over there. It was quite an event, and it meant a lot to me. I'm getting chills talking about it, and I continue to go there and welcome home. Thumbs up from Paul there. That's important. I just wish I had your voice, man. You just got the best voice. You really do. So you have to follow him with a speech. That's pretty tough to do. But anyway, I continue to return there to welcome home our heroes. And in the process, in the proclamation, I wanted to reference a couple of things. And when you're there, as all of you have been there, you see them coming down, wheelchairs, walking, their chaperones. It's amazing. And then you look behind you, there's like 350 screaming fans. I mean, these people are excited. They got banners, they got placards, and they're just so excited to see their loved ones after this long trip of 3 days. And so, to me, it's just a blessing. And when you talk to them, as I have, as it says in the proclamation, the most frequently heard veteran reactions include, "I never expected this would happen to me." How many times we've heard that? It was a trip of a lifetime. The airport welcome home to a massive cheering crowds in Fresno and Castle was something I never got after the war. Amazing. So you are all responsible for that, and you are our heroes today. So I also wanted to add a couple of things. This process is all by donations and volunteers, right? Right, Al? So whoever's listening to us, please come forward and donate and contribute to this wonderful cause. It's extremely important to our community. It's more important than ever to our veterans because we're losing them every day, and our World War II, Koreans, and so forth. So please come forward, all those that are listening and watching, and help this wonderful organization and make those large donations whenever you can. So today again, you are the heroes, and it's a pleasure to welcome you here. Gary? So we'll have Paul and Al come up here, and welcome to City Hall. We'll make it official.
Me. Thanks. Yeah, nice notes out of one eye. This is a big deal. This is a thrill for us. And I want to thank the city and our two council members. Great to see you on the first trip return. We were beat tired, yes. And it was good to have a council person out there. And this is one of my favorite clinical psychologists, a real servant of veterans, and a veteran himself. There are some representatives from your airport, the Fresno Yosemite International Airport. They did an amazing job for us. Yeah. Dan, Vicky, Ron, Joe. Yeah. See, little did they know that on 24 separate occasions, at 6 in the morning, there would only either be 400 of us there invading their airport or 1,000 of us at 5 o'clock on different nights. So just superb service also from TSA, if there's anyone from TSA here. I want to let you in on just a couple secrets to our success, and I think it is a success. First and foremost is this board, and you're going to meet this board. All volunteers, all have full-time or part-time jobs. We have no paid staff, right? It's just something they wanted to do. Now, what we didn't anticipate was that it turned out 4 times each year we would have to gather 150 individuals, including about 68 veterans, ages 79 to 99, 80% in wheelchairs, take them from here to Washington, get them on and off the bus 13 times, 2 nights in the hotel, and get them back safely to Fresno. Now, there are about 1,000 moving parts in that, and it takes $180,000 each time we did that. And that's the extraordinary talent of this board. Now, we did this from scratch. We had no experience. We had no money when we began. And there's some wise people in this community who said, you know what, great idea, but you'll never get past 2 trips. This community just can't support something that large. Well, 12 trips, and we got 2 scheduled for next year. But the beauty of this board is no politics, no egos, just all pulled together. It was just a joy to work with for me. The other thing is, I want to say about Fresno, or I love to call it Yes, and the Central Valley. You need to understand that after the first year, our area expanded to north of Modesto, south to Porterville, where we're gathering veterans, into the west side, and up into the hills. That's the area we gathered, and from that area, we got hundreds of volunteers that made this successful. And we collected $2.5 million to run these trips. $2.5 million in this, all donations in this valley, because unlike some honor flights that have Chevron or Ford backing them, in our case it was 2,800 individuals, service clubs, veteran service organizations, fundraisers, credit unions, local farmers, tractor pulls, car shows, and that got us to $2.5 million, which I think is extraordinary. So I want to say in closing that I read in the news that we've gone from the 97th best place to live in Fresno to the 96th. Maybe the city council can work on that. But in my mind, when it comes to serving veterans, there's no better place in America than right here. And the person who has led that effort and led Honor Flight is Paul Leffler. Paul?
Yes, sir. Well, I'll take issue with that characterization because this gentleman was retired, and my assessment worked 50 or 60 hours a week for 3 years for free to make this a success, and his work ethic inspired the rest of us. It's about an incredible team, and to me that's the lesson of Honor Flight. Why did we start Honor Flight here? To honor the greatest team that ever existed on the earth, our greatest generation. And we've got a member of that team sitting right here in the second row. Mr. Barney was a paratrooper, jumped out of a plane in the middle of the night on D-Day in 1944. And we understand that without these people, we wouldn't be here in many cases, and we wouldn't have what we have. They came back from the war, and they built our communities, and they never asked for anything. And finally, 60 years later, they paid for a memorial in Washington, D.C. that most of them weren't going to get to see because they were not in good enough shape. So Honor Flight was formed to get them there. We've been able to do that, and what does it mean to the veterans? Well, I don't know if we can put that into words, but we do hear those comments that you heard Councilman Capriolio cite, that it's the best experience they've ever had. What we hear from the family, we could never get him to talk about it before. Now he won't shut up. He's got so much energy. But they get around other veterans and they realize, I'm not the only one that went through this. It's okay to talk about it now. It is so cathartic. It is so fulfilling. And for me, what I've learned from this is it's not just about honoring the past. It's also about the present and the future. I don't know how you council members feel up there, but it seems like we're living in about the most divided time that any of us can remember. And what happened during World War II was this country pulled together. That's why America and its allies won. And what we're seeing with Honor Flight is the same thing. The power of these veterans and their stories is bringing everybody together. Whether you look at our donor list or our volunteer list, or best yet, do what Councilman Bredefeld and Capriolio have done, come to our welcome home at the airport. You're going to see from infant to 100, no matter what your last name is, where you're from, how much money you have. This is the one thing all of us can agree on. Our veterans deserve our thanks. They deserve our honor. And that's what we learned in the present, the power of coming together. And I know that in seeing this, our younger people are being inspired, and it's going to have an impact on our future. So thank you, Fresno City Council, for honoring Honor Flight today and helping us spread the message that hopefully we can keep this going for a long, long time.
So, City Clerk, would you read the proclamation? I want to point out also we have pictures up here from the Honor Flight as well, but if you would read the proclamation.
Sure. Whereas the Central Valley Honor Flight, a hub of the National Honor Flight Program, began in 2005 and was formed in Fresno in June 2013 with the mission of taking World War II vets and Korean War veterans to Washington, D.C. to see firsthand the memorials built in their honor at no expense to them. Given the advanced age and infirmaries, it was a trip they might never experience without the assistance and resources provided by Honor Flight. And whereas between October 2013 and October 2016, 12 trips were made, 3 days each, 10 from the Fresno Yosemite International Airport and 2 from the former Castle Air Force Base in Atwater. Each trip included 150 individuals, an average of 67 veterans ages 79 to 99, their companion guardians, and a full medical and safety team. To date, 800 veterans, including 32 women veterans from 13 counties, have been honored. Over 1,800 individuals made the journey. Thanks to careful planning and safety procedures, all have returned safely, boasting a proud record of 100%, 0 falls within injury. And whereas, at an average cost of $180,000 per honor flight, with no government or major corporate sponsorship, the Central Valley Honor Flight Board of Directors successfully raised $2.5 million from over 2,800 donors. Individuals, small, medium-sized businesses, local farmers, credit unions, service organizations, and fundraisers from Modesto to Porterville helped to support the cause. And whereas the 13-member all-volunteer Central Valley Honor Flight Board of Directors expertly managed multiple complex needs during each trip. These needs were chartering aircraft, arranging tour buses, hotel rooms, meals, medical and safety equipment, providing guarding and safety training, travel clothes, medical screening and registration. The Fresno Yosemite International Airport and regional TSA staff have gone out of their respective ways to provide extensive support and expedited procedures for every traveling veteran. Each veteran was surprised on the flight home with their own package of letters and cards called mail call, which was secretly gathered by the board. And whereas the most frequently heard veteran reaction to experience included, "I never expected this would happen to me. It was a trip of a lifetime. The airport welcome home," to massive cheering crowds to Fresno and Castle was something I never got after the war. And whereas the Central Valley Honor Flight Board of Directors are proud to have been recognized by the California State Assembly as a 2016 Nonprofit of the Year, continuous community support over all 3 years far exceeded the board's expectations. 2 trips are planned for 2017. The city of Fresno and Central Valley can be proud of supporting these veterans with an honor they so richly deserve. Now therefore be it resolved that we, Mayor Lee Brand, and the Fresno City Council members do hereby proclaim Thursday, February 16, 2017, to be Central Valley Honor Flight Day in the city of Fresno.
And at this time, I'd like to invite all the board members up to the podium. If you would, all the board members, come on up. Please come on up, and City Clerk, if you would read just the certificate of appreciation for them. How do you want to do that?
I'll just announce you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. In honor of your commitment to making a meaningful difference to the lives of our local World War II veterans and Korean War veterans by sending them to Washington, D.C. in commemoration of their sacrifice, the devotion to our veterans that you have demonstrated through your service as a board member of the Central Valley Honor Flight is to be commended.
All right, with that, folks, we're going to name each of the board members, board of directors here. And first and foremost, perhaps, Al Perry, board president, trip leader, June 2013 to December 2016. Congratulations, Al. That's Al Perry Consulting. If you need a little business there, yes, sir.
Back of the room.
Yeah, business cards available. Next, Paul Leffler, vice president, acting president, and the voice of the Fresno State Bulldogs and the voice of Hometown Heroes that I've listened to and enjoy every Saturday. Next is Rico Guerrero, treasurer, executive director, SCCD Foundation. Congratulations, Rico. Next is Patty Martin, program manager, EECU. Congratulations, Patty. Next, Jerry Farney, president, Farney Automotive Group. Congratulations, sir. Next is Bruce Bate. I know. We have a little thing going, so now I'm going to get Gary to give you a special discount too. No, Bruce is one of my favorite people of all time, and he's a great leader in our community. He is the president of Jeffrey Scott Agency. Next is Christine Edwards, Christine Edwards Consulting, LLC. Congratulations. Next is Carol Barney, Registered News. Carol? Next is Janet Goudreau. Janet? Yes, she's one of our heroes. Mark Hopkins, manager, Island Water Park. Next, we have Scott and Linda Phillips. Way at the end, our heroes down there. Larry McFarland, honorary board member. Yeah, there he is. And we have original board members from 2013. They've since moved out of the state, but we also, I missed one. And I practiced this name too. Next is Kim Regeneris, right? Program coordinator, United Cerebral Palsy. Thank you. And we have two that will receive their certificates, Leah Kidwell and Jim Huff. Big round of applause for this board of directors.
And we also want to invite Sandra Garcia from Congressman Costa's office, because I think she also has something to give you as well.
Great.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Council President and Council members. On behalf of Representative Jim Costa, unfortunately he can't be here. He's in Washington, D.C. right now, but he would like to share a few words with everyone. We commend Mr. Perry for his selfless dedication and work on behalf of our veterans. Mr. Perry, along with our Honor Flight volunteers and staff, are able to continue this program with the support of local sponsors and community. And, excuse me, it is always a highlight of our congressional delegation to help prepare for the arrival of our veterans. And because of Mr. Perry, every flight has been unforgettable. And we're doing a presentation of certificates for everyone here standing, but we would also like to highlight Mr. Perry, this nice certificate here from the congressman. And also, you pointed out once that you really liked his jacket, so he went ahead and got you a jacket from D.C. as well.
I liked his Bermuda shorts, too, at the airport.
How about the sandals?
Yeah. Well, he had a Fresno State sweatshirt on, so that was fun.
Well,
Yeah, Bulldog.
thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
All right. Thank you.
We'll just hand it to him? Okay.
You guys want to squeeze in a little bit and get everybody in 45 angles? Come on in. Staircase is great.
Again, really appreciate it. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. Oh, yeah, I'll take care of you. Yeah, okay. That's good. That's good. Hey. Oh, man, thank you. Yeah, appreciate it.
Hey, Todd, would you mind throwing those back? Yeah. Thank you, sir.
I'm going to present mine. course, are the cornerstone of the American system, and so very important. And we have a thing called a grand jury, which is so very critical to good government and efficiency and holding folks accountable in each community. And so the grand jury is also a cornerstone of what makes our system great. And every year the City Council recognizes the grand jury in the form of Grand Jury Awareness Month, where folks can, we encourage people to learn more about the grand jury and how to become involved and perhaps one day serve. And so that's why we're recognizing them. Would you like to say a few words about the grand jury and why it's important that people...
Thank you. The grand jury is mandated by the Constitution of the State of California. One of our goals as the association is to get members of the community interested in serving as grand jury members. It takes a bit of your time, actually a lot of your time, but it's well worth it. You learn more than you think you would ever know about the workings of government within your county. And although not everything that you find and investigate turns out to be corrected to the extent you would like to have seen, I found that asking questions lots of times gets lots of things open and starting to get fixed. So what this Grand Jury Awareness Month is for is to let people know that this is the time of year to start thinking about it. If you go online, or if you look in yesterday's newspaper, Judge Sorensen had an op-ed piece about the grand jury and the workings of the grand jury. And if you go to the Fresno County Superior Court website, you can get an application. If you feel interested, fill it out. It gives you a lot of information about grand jury, and essentially that's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get more than, when I served on the grand jury about 15 years ago, 85% of us came from 2 zip codes. And what we're looking for today is to get that spread out throughout the county. I sometimes think that the people in Coalinga probably don't realize that they're in the same county as the rest of us. And one of the ways we can help alleviate that problem is by having people from outlying cities becoming members of the jury. So anyway, that's what we're up to, and we greatly appreciate you honoring us with this proclamation.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'll read the proclamation. Whereas the Fresno County Grand Jury is the constitutionally mandated watchdog of California municipal government, and whereas the transparency of governmental affairs is vital to the citizenry's confidence in their elected officials, and whereas public awareness of the application process is necessary to ensure a significant and diverse pool from which to choose a grand jury, and whereas a significant media campaign is planned for the month of February, now therefore be it resolved that we, Mayor Lee Brand, and Fresno Council members do proclaim the month of February to be Grand Jury Awareness Month. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
None of you are paying attention. How would you even know? You bunch of knuckleheads. You're all doing your prayers.
We move to the approval of the minutes of February 9th, 2017. Do any council members have any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. We have a motion by Member Baines.
Second.
And a second by Member Chavez. The screen is clear. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
With any opposed, none. Motion carries 7-0. It's now time for council member reports and comments. Member Capriolio, then Member Baines, then Member Soria.
Briefly, just to let everybody know that Valentine's Day at the Veterans Hospital is a special day, and all the kids from the Fresno Unified and Fresno Central Unified School District prepare Valentines, and they bring those to the VA hospital, and then most of us, the adults and some children, get to pass those out to all the veterans in the main hospital and those that are in the assisted living portion of the hospital. And these people, men and women, light up when you bring them a Valentine or two or three, and just give them some time and to listen to their stories. It's a moving, amazing experience. So next Valentine's Day, if you would like to spend some time at 9 o'clock, we meet there, have a light breakfast, and then we take off and have some fun and honor those heroes. Thank you.
Thanks, Council President. I just wanted to announce that today, last meeting we adjourned in memory of Joe Williams, and today were his services. The services were at 10:30 at People's Church. There was a lunch that started today at, I believe, noon here. And thank you to the administration, Bruce and Lee. Appreciate all the efforts that you guys put in helping really secure the location for them at the new exhibit hall so they could have a nice lunch. And so while we were in the meeting today and I was in airport and I could not attend the service, I plan to ask the family of the late Joe Williams to come to council at our next council meeting and present a proclamation from this body to his family for his service to this community and the service to this council. Thanks, Council President.
Thank you, Council President. Just a couple of comments. One, want to thank our Parks Department for a great Valentine's Day party that they hosted at Quigley Park. I had the honor to join a number of children from the neighborhood along with parents. They had their annual Valentine's Day carnival, so just want to thank the Parks Department for always doing an awesome job. Also, I want to just congratulate my council colleague Oliver Baines and I had lunch yesterday at the Golden Restaurant. It is in the Tower District. This year they're celebrating their 50th anniversary, so we presented them with a special plaque. We want to encourage our community to support the small mom and pop businesses as they are the backbone of our economy, and specifically the Golden Restaurant, which has been around for such a long time and has stayed around in the Tower District. And so we're thankful to Ben and his family for staying there, and to all those faithful customers that continue to visit them and have their great food. The last thing that I just wanted to say, I want to thank Bitwise for last weekend hosting our District 1 young council members that had an opportunity to tour, many of them for the first time. They didn't even know what Bitwise and the kind of the movement with technology here in the city of Fresno. And so it was just exciting to be able to expose them about what is happening not only in the downtown, but also hearing from folks like Irma, who is the co-CEO, and also two young, wonderful students of the Bitwise Academy, Arturo and Vanessa Ceballos, who are now opening their own business. And so it was exciting for them to see what is happening in the downtown area along with technology boom here in our community. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Council President. I just wanted to say that earlier today I attended a funeral of a longtime friend that I used to work at Costco with about 20 years ago. It seems like another lifetime. And this guy's name is Jeff Latham. And I'd like to adjourn today's council meeting in his memory. I do get to see Jeff. I haven't seen him for years and years, but in recent years, his son became a City of Fresno police officer, Steve Latham, and also served on the FPOA board. So I did get to catch up with him in recent years, but he passed away at age of 56, and I'd like to honor him by adjourning in his memory.
Thank you, Councilmember Brandow. That concludes the council member reports and comments. We move now to the consent calendar. Are there any council members who wish to remove items from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none.
Motion to approve.
No, I'd like to remove item 1G. And we have a motion by Member Capriolio and a second by Member Soria. The screen is clear. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries 7-0. Member Capriolio.
Oh, just to say.
Yeah.
Oops. No, just.
I forgot to go out to the public.
Yes.
Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on any item contained in the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none, return it to the dais, and motion carries 7-0. City, is that all you had? City Attorney, I just wanted to kind of talk to you about the council rules of procedure. I just had one question on them. I think they're very well done, and I do appreciate all the hard work that went into them. On the one where the chair calls for a vote on items that are not expected, that are considered to be routine and not expected to be controversial, how can the chair call for that vote? Because I was happy to see this in this package of guidelines, because I've attended meetings where the chair calls for a vote by asking if there's opposition. And this is in situations where it's an expected result, a routine vote, housekeeping type items, and that way it helps the body move quicker. Can you talk about that one part of it, please?
Yes, it provides another option for voting. On a procedural item, the chair might say something like, anyone opposed? Seeing none, the item is approved. On another item, the chair might say, any opposition? Seeing none, the item is approved. That simple.
Okay. Well, I think it's fantastic. I think it's a great way to move meetings quicker instead of calling for individual votes and head counts on routine items. We can just see if there's any opposition. And the mayor of Pasadena, when he was the president of the League of California Cities, used to run the meetings that way. And it's very effective, and it's a good way to take votes. So I guess without any further comment, no council members are punched up. We have. I'll make, yes.
I just want to say, Councilmember Olivier, I'm very happy that you got the city attorney to approve voting that way. You've been really excited about this for years and been wanting to do it for a long time. I think it's our first or second year here, so now you've memorialized it in the new council rules and procedures. I'm very proud of you. It's a good day for Fresno. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Baines. Is that a motion? So moved. We have a motion and a second. No, I'm about to. Is there any opposition? All right, motion carries 7-0.
Wow.
We're getting things done here for folks watching at home. All right, I'm going to take an item out of order before we move to our 2 o'clock item. I want to first bring, this is item 4A. This is the council resolution supporting the introduction of the Gaining Responsibility on Water Act, and that's co-authored by our Congressman, David Valadao. And from his office, his District Director, Justin Mendez, is here to talk about it briefly. And I'm sure you've all seen the information that's contained in your packets. This item has support from obviously Member Valadao, but also Member Nunes, Congressman Nunes, and also folks from the other side of the aisle, even in the State Assembly. Assemblymember Arambula has offered a letter in support. So it enjoys bipartisan support, and I thought it would be important to bring this item to the council. Mayor Brand has already signed on to it, and we'll turn it over to the District Director for Congressman Valadao.
Thank you, Council President Olivier. Good afternoon, members of the council. HR 23 was introduced on the first day of session. Water is the most important economic issue of the Central Valley. As the council president has stated, there is bipartisan support for this in both the federal and state legislatures. So other than Assemblyman Arambula, Assemblyman Salas, and Assemblyman Gray have both, with the assistance of Senator Vidak, have come together to support this legislation on the state side. There are 9 titles to the bill, and in summary, Title I deals with direct allocation of water. Your neighboring cities of Coalinga and Huron have federal water contracts in the CVP system, and this would directly impact them. The other 8 title items deal with bureaucracy attached to water infrastructure projects. As we've seen here with recent rains, we don't really have a shortage problem, we have a storage problem. And the folks in Oroville would have some things to say about water infrastructure as well. This streamlines the process for building dams. This prioritizes Temperance Flat, which is very important to this region. The Temperance Flat JPA has offered a letter of support. Both Westlands and Friant Water Districts and the San Joaquin Exchange Contractors have offered support of this bill. So we have overwhelming support, including around 40 cities in our district and the districts of Congressman Nunes' office right now, and we would love to have the city of Fresno on board with this.
Thank you very much for that presentation. We'll bring it back for questions in just a second, but first we'll go out to the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll return it to the dais. We'll begin with Member Baines.
Thanks, Council President, and I won't be long. I'm going to be supportive of this item. Thank you all for bringing it. I think, is this your item, Council President?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for bringing it. Just wanted to mention I believe Congressman Costa also supports this as well. And this is my congressman, so I wanted to make sure that was on the record. I make a motion to approve.
Okay. We have a motion by Member Chavez and a second by Member Baines. Member Soria.
Thank you. I won't make my comments too long, but I just wanted to say, I'll be supportive and join this bipartisan effort. I know, as mentioned by my colleague, my congressman is supporting as a co-sponsor. I also know that he has submitted a letter to Congressman Valadao just expressing some of his concerns, but I know that this is kind of a first step in attempting to address the issues of reliability that we are experiencing here in the Valley. So I'm supportive, I think, of the general concept, but I also would share some of the same concerns that our congressman has brought up. So I hope that as the bill moves through the process, those things can be worked out. I'd also encourage you, just because I've worked on water quality issues, that as you guys are addressing issues of reliability, you guys are also thinking of water quality issues that impact the Valley as a whole. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The screen is clear. Is there any opposition? Item passes 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You see how that works? That's good. All right, now we'll move to our 2 o'clock item. This is a hearing to adopt resolutions and ordinance to annex territory, and this is from the Public Works Department.
Good afternoon, President Olivier, members of the council. I'm Andrew Benelli with the Public Works Department. Here today asking for a public hearing to consider an annexation into Community Facilities District Number 11. This is at the request of the landowners. We have received the ballots back. All landowners are in support of being annexed into this district, and the annual cost of the services is $263.20. Thank you.
All right, we'll go out to the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll return it to the dais. The screen is clear. Is there a motion to approve? We have a motion by Member Capriolio, a second by Member Soria. Is there any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. We move now to our general administration. The item is the radio system evaluation project. This is from the ISD. It's a workshop.
Good afternoon, Council. Brian Horn, Chief Information Officer for City of Fresno. Today we're going to talk to you about the analysis that we've done over the last year for our radio systems. Some of you already know that we have taken about a year and a half ago, we went out to bid to have a consultant come in and evaluate our systems based upon a number of needs. So the purpose of today's workshop is to go over the needs, tell you where we are in the process, and to give you an idea of where we're headed next. Of course, the need was that we have issues in the city, we have aging infrastructure, and of course, a lot of the information is confidential, so we're going to go over the high levels of this assessment. The consultant that won the RFP was CDS Wireless Technology, and Bob Simmons from CDX is here today in the audience in case you have some questions. They were selected from an RFP process. They are based in Pleasanton, California. They specialize in radio and microwave systems and do a great job, and they come highly recommended. So they went ahead and evaluated the city systems based upon a number of items. I'm going to go through that methodology with you here shortly. The evaluation consisted of several departments. We have, of course, fire and police. Those are pretty obvious, as well as other departments that had radio communication systems in the city. Fresno City Airports, Public Works, they have the Streets Division, Public Utilities, Water, Solid Waste, and Wastewater, as well as the Transportation Utilities, which is the Fresno Area Express. So, of course, the information systems was there of getting the helping along with the assessment. So, a number of departments involved. Now, this map shows you the service area. Now, if you would imagine that everything in the blue is the PD. The city PD department, all the districts, service stations are in there, and the red area is fire district. So fire not only takes care of the city of Fresno, they also take care of North Central Fire Protection District. So the area involved is 338 square miles, and the assessment that was performed included the entire area that you see up on your screen. So methodology. So first of all, we evaluated the city areas of service. Of course, 338 square miles, the microwave backbone, which is what everything runs over. We evaluated interoperability. We talked to the County of Fresno, City of Clovis, as well as some neighboring agencies, just to make sure that we were able to talk to them. The evaluation produced 3 reports. One is the overview of the system, one is established 4 recommendations, and the last one is the offer lifecycle support plans. I will tell you that when we went through this process that this particular we have life cycle built into this particular evaluation. There are 15 years in the proposals, and I'll go over that in a few minutes. So what are the issues that we found? Well, okay, first of all, aging infrastructure. Of course, I've addressed that before. The microwave system is end of life, end of support. It is being supported by staff, and it's an 11-year-old system, so it's quite old. Radio consoles, a lot of them are running on Windows XP, which is end of life, end of support as well. So those need to be replaced. We also are experiencing some radio interference. We've got fire on VHF, which is just a frequency, and police is on UHF as a frequency. And what we have found is interference on those frequencies because they are shared. For example, the fire department actually intercepted a communication from Moss Landing, which is over in Monterey Bay, and we heard it loud and clear. So if you can imagine, the radio communications are on top of mountains, and you can imagine the San Joaquin Valley being on one side, and of course Salinas on the other side, so you can see the propagation. The mountaintop is a propagation point, and it showed we were able to hear it from there. Police also had some interruptions on their frequency as well, and they're very hard to determine where these interruptions come from because you can't quite pinpoint where radio location is, especially if somebody is, making a broadcast and then moving. So we had some issues with interference. The other issues we have are in the coverage areas. We do also have coming up later as a council item on to help with some of those interference areas, but we had interference areas in the city, dead spots for fire and police. So the covered components for all the alternatives that we're going to see today, basically we have radio consoles as we talked about before, the backhaul, which is the microwave system, which everything runs over. There's some fixed two-way radio equipment, so you're talking about the handhelds and the mobiles, as well as subscriber equipment, which could be towers, buildings, emergency generators, backup batteries, and radio site infrastructure. So there are a lot of pieces in this particular assessment that were evaluated. So everything in the alternatives that you see on the screen, of course, what we talked about before, we have support. It's a 15-year support and life cycle.
There are no do-nothing alternatives here. It's basically everything that we looked at. There's a replacement cost, and we were replacing equipment. There are 4 alternatives, and the alternative that we feel is the best is Alternative 1. Alternative 1 gets everybody on the same frequency. It is manageable. We can give fire or PD priority on the signals if they need it on the channels. The problem with the Alternative 1, or the issue that we have, the concern, is interoperability with the other agencies, and we think we have a way around that. However, that is a concern of ours. Alternative 2, okay, so Alternative 2.
And I'm going to jump in right here,
yes,
Brian, because I'm going to just, and I'm going to say this, so I want to say it now because it's the appropriate time. So that is my number one concern, as you know, the interoperability with our surrounding agencies. And I know that there are some options that you guys have moving forward. And my main concern is that as you all roll this out and explore the options, and I think this is going to be a possibility because we talked, that solving the interoperability problem in as efficient a manner as possible is a top priority for me. So, for instance, if we have to spend a little bit more to make sure that our firefighters and our police officers can talk to their surrounding their counterparts in other agencies, that's a high priority for me. So, just wanted to make sure that is a big deal.
Absolutely.
And we want to make sure that we as we approach this, we're going in mind. We're trying to solve that up front.
Right, absolutely. We go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and Brian, you and I had met on this with Chief Donis as well in my office, and Councilman Baines, I expressed the exact same viewpoint. And I had a good conversation with Mayor Brand last week about working much closer with the county of Fresno, right? And he said that it looks like that we're going to have some great opportunities. This council has already started those conversations in recent years, but now this looks like a real opportunity for us to come together. And, so I agree with you. I would rather sit and see if we can have those conversations, be a part of this before we get serious about spending this kind of money. I don't know if spending this money...
I totally agree with you, Steve. And my only thing was that going in with the idea of solving the problem, whether it's through getting the cooperation of the surrounding agencies to come on board, or if that can't happen in the time frame that we are, they have options to make sure that our radios can just toggle so that they're not carrying 2 radios. So they have a couple of options. The preferred one is the one you're mentioning, though, right. In my mind. I totally agree with that. And I shared the same exact sentiment with Chief and Brian, that we need to be trying to collaborate as we roll this out.
Yeah, it's something at this level of money, we don't want to get into it and then find out, it just really... It's a bummer that we didn't get the other agencies working at the same time. You never know. The city of Fresno is going to be able to repave Bullard Avenue because the right time was there, the monies were there, and working together creates a better product rather than the city of Fresno just doing our sections of Bullard. So, same example. All right, thank you.
Go ahead. Thanks for the recognition, President. Joining your comments, and I think actions speak louder than words, and we've talked about and had meetings and done some productive things through it, especially with our city manager in a leadership role. So this would be a perfect opportunity to show that we are willing to take the action to implement the dialogue, to coordinate our efforts, and I think not only with the county of Fresno, but perhaps the city of Clovis, and make it across the board for our public safety component parts. Thank you.
Okay, I agree with that, and we have talked to other agencies about interoperability. For example, Sacramento Fire, we've talked to them. They're on 800 megahertz, but the areas around them are going 700, and there's some on UHF and some on VHF. So we're talking to the other agencies and saying, what are you guys doing? And making sure we know. And we've got CDX here who's had some experience in that as well. So on the alternatives, 1 is preferred. We have 2, 3, and 4. 2 kind of, you solve one problem with fire because you get them on the 700 megahertz, but then you've got a problem with police and the interference, so that's not a complete solution. They're on the UHF system. You got alternative number 3, kind of same thing. You keep them both on the same frequencies, but then have a trunked system. So you're really not solving the issues. You're still getting interference. And number 4 is in expanding it as is. which you're just upgrading and replacing the equipment that you have in place already. So it really doesn't solve any issues either. So we're feeling like number one is probably the best solution for us. We did talk about cost. You mentioned it earlier. And it's a steep price tag. And you have the 4 different alternatives. Now, you can see that there's a couple of different costs up there. There's a public safety, public works and DPU cost, and an all city cost. Now, the numbers are different for a number of reasons. The low cost is basically for public safety and solid waste, and the other cities to join in, or departments to join in at basic levels, but it could be as high as $27 million on option 1 because of what we're implementing and the options we choose to purchase. Also, you were asking why the alternatives are a little bit different in cost in our meetings. If you look at 1, 2, 3, and 4, they're all about the same cost. Option 1 is the least expensive. One of the reasons for that is you're going to have fewer sites that you need to install and replace for the 700 megahertz system. You're going to need fewer sites to support, fewer sites to implement. So the support costs on the other 3 are a little higher. So there are some different components that you have to replace in each of the different alternative that we can share with you later. But or CDX can talk to you about that today, if you will. But those are some of the costs that we see out there. Okay, so purpose of this workshop was to tell you where we were, where we are, next steps for us. We've actually have done an assessment. We've looked at the radio system. We've identified some of the issues that we have. We've got some preliminary costs. Now, the next thing is to go through phase 1, or the alternative 1, which we think is the best approach, and to then finalize the cost of the allocations and the financing structure. We're not sure exactly where the dollars are coming from yet. We've got to identify where they're coming from. See if we can. This is going to be a phased approach. So see how the phases will line up. We may be doing the microwave in 1 year and another component the next year. I mean, this is going to take over several years, a couple of different years to get this result implemented. We're also high priority on our list as well as you is interoperability with the neighboring agencies. That has to be looked at quite extensively. We need to develop a plan of implementation, and of course, again, I said we needed to determine a method of funding. We did identify 2 immediate needs, or 2 things we can do that would help out immensely, and one of them is a council item that's coming up next after the workshop. One of them is about scan improvements. We can explain that to you and go over that in the council item when it comes up. And the other one is microwave replacement. It's $3.5 million. It's the backbone. It can be done first, and it's part of the project. So if we do that first, then that will come out of the costs of the entire assessment. So did the assessment, have some alternatives. We need to do some next steps and do a little more work. So at this point in time, you have questions, comments?
Yeah. If I could, real quickly, council members. Again, the purpose of this workshop was, as we have been doing now for over a year, we've been going out and doing these various assessments of existing assets and infrastructure. And as we talked about last week was about parks. A little before that, we had parking garages. Before that, we talked about the price of ownership out at the MSC as well as elsewhere. This is just another part of that conversation. We talk a lot about public safety. And public safety, while adding positions is important, as we also know, that is a cost associated with that infrastructure that is needed by public safety for the men and women in public safety to perform their jobs. For example, until last year, there was not a fleet replacement schedule for fire apparatus in the fire department. There was no hose replacement program in the fire department. So we were running equipment a lot longer than it should have, and it becomes more expensive to operate. We've talked about that. We've issued bonds to make repairs to fire stations with those repairs with a lifespan of 10 years, but we issued a 30-year bond to finance it. So we're paying debt on 30 years on an asset that has a shelf life of 10 years. I challenged Brian a little bit on the fact that we are dealing with a technology-driven asset, and to me, 15 years is a little long, given how quickly. I'll compare my phone to Councilmember Capriolo's. how quickly technology changes and the need for systems, not so much the hardware, but the software that is used and its compatibility with other systems. So again, we're bringing this to your attention because once I became aware of the number, we've already reached out to Len Simon, who's our lobbyist in Washington, and asking him to bring to the attention of the new administration, to the Trump administration, that while they're talking about investing in infrastructure, they tend to be focusing on bridges and roads and maybe even high-speed rail, but nevertheless, if they're going to be talking
Dams,
about...
I think dams
too.
Priority we're looking at there.
While they're talking about infrastructure and given their support for law enforcement, that they also recognize that law enforcement is also supported by infrastructure, and maybe similar investments to help with law enforcement would be appreciated, because the same pot of money that we need to hire police officers and firefighters is the same pot of money that we're going to need to upgrade this system. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Council President. Brian, I wanted to go back to the page that shows the prices.
Sure.
The sticker prices for each one of these.
There you go.
Yeah. So number one is your preferred alternate, right?
Yep.
And a lot of times you see our preferred alternate is the one that costs the most.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, it's really interesting. Preferred alternate is right there at the least, actually, or almost at the least. And so the preferred alternate one is the biggest overhaul of the system of the four alternates. So why would you explain, is it least as far as the pocket?
I'm going to let Bob take that question. I can explain it, but he'll do a better job.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Council. Bob Simmons with CDX Wireless. So the reason why the first alternative is less is because there's less sites, as Brian alluded to earlier. So right now, your current system has something on the order of 16 sites, actual towers and stuff located throughout the city and parts of North Central. Because of the band that we're moving to is 700 megahertz, it's not as, one, it's not as congested, and two, it's not as affected by electronic noise. So as Brian kind of alluded to, there's a thing called narrowbanding that just occurred in 2012 that kind of shrunk the bandwidth of the current radio channels. When that happened, all the things that we carry, our cell phones, our computers, our LED lights, all those things have electronic noise that raised the noise floor and made those systems more susceptible. That's why the range kind of decreased when that happened. So because we're going to 700, it requires less sites to get the same amount of coverage, less sites, less cost.
Oh, all right. Interesting. That's very interesting. So then, and Bruce, I don't know, this question might be to you. You mentioned talking to the Trump administration, but are there communication grants for public safety organizations that we could apply for, or what's that look like?
That's why we reached out to Len Simon. I'm not aware of any right now, but of course they're always updating federal programs through the COPS program, maybe through with fire sources, grant sources for fire departments, because I think a regional approach will garner a higher level of grant participation by the federal government if it was everyone else, including the county, some of the small cities, because I'm pretty confident a lot of the cities in this area are also dealing with the aging infrastructure challenges that we are. And so we've reached out, they're checking, as far as I know, there isn't anything really available, at least at this magnitude, but that doesn't mean that we can't start moving that ball down the field.
All right, well, because it's really, at the end of the day, it's something desperately needed, but it's already got quite a sticker price. It doesn't, not quite reaching the 112 million that we heard about last week, but 27 million is a lot of money. And so I think, we've heard from council on this a little bit. It seemed like this would be a next great conversation to have with the local agencies like the County of Fresno. And maybe yourself or Mayor Brand can put that on an agenda somewhere, and maybe we could have a joint meeting or something.
And I will point out, of the 22.7 million, 3.4, and Brian, you'll go back to the map, About 3.4 million, I believe, is associated with providing coverage to the North Central Fire District.
Right.
And as you know, we have another ongoing issue with that district in our current agreement. So in addition to the challenges with the agreement, that's an expense that I don't know if the city of Fresno should be looking to try to underwrite.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, I'm done. Thanks, Brian. Thank you, Bob.
Hey, thanks, Council President. And interestingly enough, I was going to make one of the same points that Steve made on because the one thing that we didn't talk about, or that I forgot to mention, was my advice on the grant. And I gave the advice to staff that they're not aware of a regional grant that exists, because that's the very same thing we discussed as well. That's the best and highest use of this technology at this point, and this infrastructure investment is to really make it regional. But because of state and federal requirements, there should be a regional grant. So my advice, Bruce, is that if there isn't one that exists, we tell them that they create one, because that's what's needed. And I know that works. So we've done that before. So just because a grant program doesn't exist, we tell them what we need, and then we make them go write it for us. So that would be my suggestion, along with Steve and Bruce on that. And lastly, I just wanted to mention one thing I really do like, and I know that since I came to this council, Bruce always talked about life cycle costs that we never contemplated, and we always have these discussions on replacement costs. And what I like about this is that this contemplated upfront in the initial assessment, and that actually is a new practice. I know for people watching right now, seems like it shouldn't be, but it is. Normally, when we have these discussions over the last few years, we always have not contemplated that up front, but we are now, and I wanted to commend staff on that. But I do agree, 15 years on radios may be long, just because of technology. So, and you can speak to that, sir.
Yeah, so that's a very valid point, Councilmember. However, what we're talking about is the infrastructure, the core system itself.
Okay.
As part of the maintenance costs, we have included in the estimates for upgrades. And
the actual units, we don't anticipate them to last 15 years, but we're talking about the infrastructure.
Yeah, the main system itself, right? There's going to be periodic updates or refreshes or change out of handhelds, mobiles, and things like that. But the core infrastructure, the system itself.
Very good. Yeah, thanks for that explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilmember Baines actually asked some of the questions that I had as far as the maintenance cost. So those are all built into this price tag. Is that correct?
So the initial price tag includes remediation costs for upgrading sites and things just to get the system on the air. As Byron alluded to, the maintenance cost is in a separate report, and those are separate costs.
What was the estimate for that separate cost?
I don't have that in front of me, but
okay. I like to get that part of information.
Mike was just saying that the costs include maintenance.
Okay, so it is in there. So I saw that with the option that you had, it was all city departments, so other city departments will be able to utilize this. And so that goes to the question that Councilmember Baines asked as far as the maintenance cost. I know that there are times when an enterprise fund, the general fund, will combine some money. Is that what we're looking at here, where departments that are utilizing this from the enterprise fund will contribute to this in addition to the general fund, Bruce? Or what are we looking at?
What I asked Brian to do is break out the cost between the enterprise departments and the general fund departments. The vast majority of this expense, correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be the public safety, which is general fund.
Yes, it is.
Fax is already plugged in money to replace their communication system or upgrade their communication system. And there's some technical issues of moving down a frequency, because I was a project manager. We went up to 800 to get out of everybody's way. And I was transmitting data, and so there some discussions about data now. It might be cheaper than doing over a cellular backbone rather than, but there's also costs associated from DPU, but the biggest chunk of this is going to be borne by the general fund. If you look at his other department, those are the other departments, airport and fax.
Okay. And then the last question I had was with regards to and this is a question that I asked Chief when we met, with regards to us partnering with neighboring agencies. Is there an opportunity for some cost sharing there in the future? And if we are able to work out some sort of an MOU with an agency, would this system be upgradable to expand at a later time, or is this set as far as the coverage area and the capacity?
So it is a trunk system, and so in that it's a computer control system. So the main computer, the core, is able to be expanded through ports to add other sites, other systems onto it. Okay. In a way, so the way as we went through this evaluation, North Central is kind of a separate and distinct cell, I guess, in a way to kind of look at it that way. So city proper is one cell, North Central Fire District is another cell, and if you wanted to expand that, that could be Clovis, rest of the city, rest of the counties,
okay,
and so forth.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So if we were able to just take $27.9 million and upgrade this whole system, how long would it be before you guys would be back here saying we need to upgrade again? How long does that system last when you upgrade this now? I mean, is this a 10-year, 15-year upgrade?
So the life cycle we projected was 15 years.
About 15 years.
So included in some of those maintenance costs were the periodic upgrades.
Okay. So, I think obviously we don't have, $28 million laying around. I like the idea of the county and looking at other agencies, grants, enterprise fund that are appropriate. And I guess at some point when we need to upgrade this, looking at borrowing the money and paying it out over the 15-year life of the loan, is that a reasonable? No, that's not. You think $28 million one-time expenditure?
Depends on the rate of the money.
Yeah.
I think we really need to look at whether or not we're going to take on any other debt or additional debt. Do we have the capacity to pay that debt? Because you are now obligating the general fund. So, and then in that conversation, if we're looking at 27, if I do a future value at 2.5, 3, let's say 15 years from now, that might be a $35 million system that has to be replaced. So in addition to the debt, you'd have to look at also, and we've talked about this, setting money aside over the course of the next 15 years to replace that system when it gets to the end of life. So you'll theory be paying debt on a bond for an existing asset, but the prudent move would also be setting money aside over the next 15 years to replace that asset once it reaches end of life.
A number of agencies have started to look at that and do that as well.
Yeah, that's the conversation we have about the sinking fund for almost everything we have. It's not only the cost of replacing something today, but the future cost of replacing that asset in the future. But as far as issuing bonds, I would rather try to find a grant solution rather than putting the organization further in debt, given some of the other challenges that we have, just making existing debt service at the expense of other priorities that we constantly are grappling with.
Yeah, and I agree with you, but what happens if you don't have enough grant money, you're not able to get the grant money, you're not able to get, all the ideas are excellent ideas, and hopefully we have enough, but what if there isn't enough money for the grant and you got to replace these radios?
Then you're going to look at paying debt on replacing a communication system rather than hiring police officers and firefighters. That's the trade-off.
Okay. Thanks.
The Vice President. Well, in fact, I actually just have a couple of remarks. I want to thank you for taking the time to meet with me, also the Chief, in explaining the evaluation really and the needs that exist. I think that over the course of the last few weeks and months, we've seen the needs that exist not only within the upgrades needed to help strengthen our public safety department, or our public safety, which is fire and police, but also the needs that exist across the city in regards to park and other different maintenance issues. So I think that and I hope that this council at some point does have a really honest conversation about how we're going to pay for some of these costs over time in terms of deferred maintenance that exist, and to really improve the quality of services that we provide across the city for all our residents. So with that, just again, thank you for sharing the information. Are there any other folks that... Okay, it's clear, and the president is back.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the workshop, right? All right, thank you very much. We're going to need you again in a second, though, because I'm going to...
You got 2 more times.
Okay. Member Brando, do you want to take the floor? Do you have a presentation for us?
It's actually, I'm going to turn it over to Brian and or Chief Donis real quick. It's really an outgrowth of the conversation we just had. As a matter of fact, really a first part of the workshop was going to include what we're going to talk about right now. They just chose to separate the 2 items, but this was part of the original workshop, and it's something that we could, in my mind, it's a piece of low-hanging fruit. You just heard Brian say that this is going to take several years, whichever path we choose to upgrade our communications. It's going to take several years, but there's an immediate thing that will help Chief Donis, her department, and so I want them to tell us about that, and then I'm going to suggest we make a motion to get that process underway, get them some help right away. But Chief?
Thank you. So in the process of CDX and their evaluation, ISD and our communications team at Station 8 did further drill down on what you are seeing in front of you called VoteScan. And it's a software piece that you can implement onto our current radios, and the visual that's in front of you is a quick look at what we have today, which is with the yellow, orange, green, and blue lines. That's communication that's taking place with the green line being the one of the 6 radios that they could hear clearly. Now, this isn't in every area of the city, but it's enough that it is a communications problem. With VoteScan, on the other slide, you see clear communications with all radios on the fire ground. So let me back you up and give you a quick backstory, which I shared with many of you. We've been patching and piecing our outdated communication system for years. We've modified our policies. We've made some modifications. This council, with the blessing of the city manager and mayor, purchased 360 new radios about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago. That made an improvement for our firefighters. With that, we also implemented a toggle where we go to talk around, where we are asking our firefighters to switch their radio over to talk around so they can hear more clearly on the fire ground. What we found is that's happening from time to time, but not enough. Furthermore, we still have some communications issues, but with this VoteScan opportunity, we see that we can make an immediate improvement to firefighter safety. It's about $85 a radio, and about 30 radios we need to purchase for our battalion chiefs' vehicles. Those are a little bit more pricey. So for about $127,000, $130,000, we can implement this as soon as we can get those things purchased and programmed. This has nothing to do with interoperability with our neighbors, meaning that they don't have to go do something with their radios. They still work the same. They work on the same channel. It's just an improvement in software that we can do today. And that's the piece on VoteScan that I think we can make a difference while we decide how we're going to move forward with improving our entire public safety communication system.
Thanks, Chief. Brian, did you have anything you wanted to add to that? All right. Then, Councilman, you want to say something?
No, go ahead and finish.
So, really, I know we can go back out onto the public on this because this is a voting item, but in reality, in my mind, and by the way, Bruce, this $126,000, $127,000 that the chief's talking about for VoteScan, that would come from a pot of money of about $800,000 that we've had set aside for communications. Is that correct?
Correct. As we started dealing with some of these other issues, in particular in the fire department, we came to the council, I think a year ago, in a budget and recommended that we place at least $800,000 into a replacement fund to start addressing some of these things. So this short-term, I'll use for lack of a better term, roll of duct tape, can be funded out of those dollars that council set aside a year ago.
Okay, so we already have a pot of money that's meant to deal with fire communications. This would come a drawdown on that $800,000. And so really what I'm suggesting after the conversation we just had, where guys like me, Councilman Baines, Councilman Chavez, we're talking about, let's look at grants and let's look at talking with the County of Fresno and joint meetings. All of that stuff's going to take time, even if we have to create a grant maybe. All of that stuff's going to take time, but in the meantime, Chief Donis's team out in the field has got some communication problems that we could do a quick fix, and it's not going to overhaul the system, but it's going to help in the interim. So really what I'm suggesting is that council, that we direct the fire department to bring back the AAR for the next council meeting so we can go ahead and vote on that. Is that correct? Bruce, you're smirking at me.
I think what you meant to say is that you're requesting that the city manager, in conjunction with the fire department, come back to the council in a week with an AAR.
You know, I misread that first line on my paragraph here, and I left that little part out.
Yeah.
And it was highlighted, too. That's weird. Okay, so that's what I'm requesting then. So I'd like to make that motion, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion, a second by Member Baines. At this time, we'll go out to the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to address this agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we'll return it to the dais. The screen is clear. Go ahead.
I have one question. This pot of gold at $800,000, is that solely and exclusively for fire? Is that what Steve's telling us?
It was set aside for communication system for public safety. So it's not exclusive to fire. It could also be used for the police department. But again, at the time, we recognize that both systems are in need of replacement. So that's why the council approved setting aside money for this purpose. So it's appropriate.
Thank you.
Okay, the screen is clear. So let's vote. Is there any opposition to the motion? Okay, motion carries 7-0. We'll move now to our next item. This is also going to be ISD. Approve the renewal of the Oracle Public Sector Technical Support Services Agreement.
Council, Brian Horn, Chief Information Officer, once more time. I can speak. So this item before you is a routine maintenance item for us. Basically, we have Oracle support services for databases for PeopleSoft, for the HR system and the financial system, as well as GIS systems. This is a database support item. We pay it every year. It is allocated in our budget every year. And one of the reasons why this is in front of you today is it goes up 3% every year, and rather come back to you every year with the amount. We're looking to get authorization to move forward as long as it is not above a particular amount, which is $355,000, because it increases 3% a year. That would be the cap out is we're projecting 3% in the next 5 years. So again, a routine item for us, and I'm here for any questions.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll go out to the public. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to address the council on this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council. Member Bredefeld, then Member Baines.
Yeah, Brian, this technical support, it's $300,000. Are these, what kind of support is this? Is this a person from Oracle that responds? Is it simply software that does this?
It's technical support, patches, and updates for the particular software that we are on. It's for our databases.
So you mean we wouldn't get the updates if we weren't paying this fee?
No, we wouldn't get the support either.
Okay.
And this is for critical systems for our PeopleSoft system, which runs not only our personnel system, it also runs our financials, runs our purchase orders, runs all the systems in the city, as well as our GIS as well.
Okay. And this is typically what other cities are also paying Oracle for these kinds of technical support?
Unfortunately, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Council President. So I'm going to ask a question that's not exactly tied to this item.
Sure.
But it's been a ongoing frustration of mine with ISD, and maybe as I walk out of here to be fixed. But how are we going to get our internet service to run faster?
Okay, good question. Good point. We do have systems in the work that we're trying to upgrade to make sure it runs faster. So we've got some systems that we need to replace. There will be an item on the council, 2 or 3 council meetings from now to get some of that replaced equipment in here. So, but we do have to do some upgrades in the IT department as well.
All right, well, when that item comes, just be prepared for my questions about how, about improving the reliability and the speed of our internet system.
It may be improved, hopefully improved in the next couple of weeks. We'll see.
Well, okay. You said that on public record, by the
we'll
way.
See.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay, the screen is clear. We have a motion, a second, correct? Do we have someone make a motion? Member Bredefeld, and who was the second on that one? Okay, and then Member Bain seconds it. The screen is clear. Is there any opposition to this agenda item? Seeing none, the motion carries 7-0. Thank you. Okay, we move now to City Council, item 4B. This is a bill for introduction relating to the reimbursement of expenses for elected officials. Member Bredefeld.
Yeah, this is an item just to clarify, I think clean up some of the language related to our vehicle allowances and expenses related to meals and things of that sort. I think it affords us the opportunity to take those allowances as a stipend or to provide reimbursements. We can either opt for one or the other. I guess each have different tax implications, and so it brings it forward. And I think it helped clarifies how we do that expenditure personally. City Attorney, is there anything that you might want to add?
That captures it. This doesn't really change anything. What it does is clarify the procedures to make sure that everybody's in compliance with federal law.
Okay, is that
I'd like to make a motion to approve it.
We have a motion by Member Bredefeld and a second by Member Soria. The screen is clear. Is there any opposition to the agenda item? What? Members of the public. Is anyone from the public wish to address the City Council? Okay, seeing. Yes, come forward, please. Please give us your name and your address for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Larry Taylor. And the issue is about a proposed basketball courts at Eaton Park Plaza.
I'm sorry, Mr. Taylor. It's on this agenda item, but you're here for unscheduled communication.
Right,
okay,
right.
I will call you next.
Okay,
so if it's not on this item, we will just go ahead and. No problem. Okay, so no one for that. We'll return it to the dais. The screen is clear. Is there any opposition?
I thought of something, Councilman Bredefeld, and maybe you or the city attorney could help me out on this. So is this just clarifying which direction? So any council district can choose either of 2 pathways, is that correct?
That is correct.
But the goal is to stop any kind of hybrid of the 2 pathways, is to bring a lot of clarity, right? For instance, my council district, we just do a stipend. I don't mess with a lot of receipts and stuff like that. I just do a stipend monthly.
Yeah, I think it's basically to choose one or the other, but I guess you can do it if it's the vehicle. You could do one that's a stipend, and you could do the meal allowance that is a reimbursement. You can do either one. Like you, I prefer just to do the stipend for both, and it is what it is.
Okay.
But I think you can separate them if you want.
And then each council district has their own choice to make there.
Exactly.
All right, that's what I thought. That's what I thought you were saying. I'll be supportive of that. Thank you.
All right, the screen is clear. Is there any opposition to the agenda item? Seeing none, motion carries 7-0. At this time, because I promised Mr. Taylor, we'll open it up for unscheduled communication. Come forward again if you could give us your name and address for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes with which to address the council.
Okay, Larry Taylor, 2890 Huntington Boulevard, number 163. That's at R Street. I have been a resident for over 30 years at this address and retired for 4 years. Anyway, there's a rumor that there's basketball courts being recommended for Eaton Plaza. And I'm requesting a full public hearing on the matter. It seems like maybe it's being an administrative issue right now, or trying to be put through as administrative. And, Eden Park, it's been an issue of my whole lifetime here. We need the green space that Eden has promised for 70 years. And short history, 2002, there was initial funding of $700,000 put into it by the council. At that time, I believe that Councilman Bredefeld was part of that effort. There was a groundbreaking held in 2005 and a bond issue approved in 2008. In 2010, the project was canceled by our previous mayor. The vision has always been a downtown green space with water features reflecting our historic water tower, landscaping, shade trees, and seating areas. Basketball courts would require paving, chain link fencing, oversight, supervision, and maintenance. It would, I believe, represent a major change in direction for Eden Plaza. At this time, I would urge a public notice on this issue, invite all stakeholders for a conversation, and consider removal of the county parking lot. And
you have a minute remaining.
Okay, thank you. I'll be done in a second. Removal of the county parking lot, paved area, and finish the 70-year vision of an urban green space. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else who wishes to address the City Council for unscheduled communication? Seeing none, we'll return it to the dais. Member Bredefeld.
Yeah, maybe Bruce, you can address this. I've gotten calls on this issue. I don't know what's happening other than what the gentleman is talking about, proposal for basketball courts by Eden Plaza. Can you address it? Thanks.
Okay, yes, included in this year's budget, there is funding set aside to install one, if not two, basketball courts at Eden Plaza. The plan that the gentleman referred to was initiated in 2004. The price tag for that project through completion at that time was $6.8 million. In today's value is probably $8.5 million. There was never any funding set aside for this project. As this council knows, we barely found enough money to finish up the last two parks that we built. This project, similar to the Vagabond Skate Park Complex and a couple of other ideas or concepts, were never funded. So therefore, going forward and knowing that we're also now dealing in a different age, the idea is to put in at least one, if not two, basketball courts. The plan that was mentioned also, as commented on, included a very large fountain as a centerpiece, as well as a lot of hardscape concrete work. And if you look at the amount of green space that would actually have remained if that project had been funded, one basketball court probably takes up less green space than the fountain that was envisioned at that time, let alone all the other hardscape. And so the idea is to provide an amenity in the downtown, and it is adjacent to the Fresno Police Department. And the thought is that the Fresno Police Department, through their PAL program in conjunction with the Parks Department, could help provide some opportunities for a youth program right across the street from the police station. And for a lot of us who go by this park on a daily basis, it's not utilized very much, other than a significant number of vagrants who like to hang around the amphitheater. So it was funded. There will be a community. It will be noticed, because at some point in time we have to come back with a potential award. I also will tell you that the older plan it has some issues as far as being consistent with the downtown specific plan. For example, it calls for the closing of Mariposa, and our new downtown specific plan has Mariposa open to vehicle traffic. So again, it was never funded. It was not defunded because it was never funded, and it was just one of those other concepts that were developed in 2004 without any real consideration as to the ability to actually move forward with the project into its completion.
Thank you. City Manager. All right, we'll move now to item 4C. This is relating to stipends for City Council interns. Member Soria.
This item is very simple. It's just, it would actually allow the City Council to provide small stipends out of our existing budgets to interns that we may have serving our offices as volunteers. Ever since I started, or since I came on board and got sworn in, I've had interns every semester, and there's a number of them that do it on a volunteer basis because they're not part of the Maddie Institute. We also have various Maddie Institute interns, but just gives us an opportunity to provide a little stipend either for gas money or for books. Many of these young people are students, and so I just want to make a motion to allow us to give stipends from our existing budgets.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Member Chavez. The screen is clear. I have a couple of questions for you. I'm curious, is it stipend or reimbursement? So if I have to run an errand or something as a part of my internship or attend an event or something, I can issue a receipt and receive reimbursement for that, or is it a stipend? I believe that the definition of stipend is just a payment.
Yes. So it would just be a flat stipend to the discretion of your office. It just gives us the authority to be able to give them, say at the concluding of their time in the office, a small stipend.
Is it $500 per month per intern?
No, it's maximum amount. So it just provides a maximum amount per month if that's how much you want to give them. So but you have all the discretion, or each council office has discretion.
Okay.
It's within your budget. You don't have to do it, but this allows us, for those that do have interns that are on a volunteer basis, to give them a flat stipend rather than having to deal with maybe specific reimbursements.
Okay. What kinds of and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but what kinds of expenses are the interns coming up against?
Well, for many of them, I think giving them the opportunity to work here without pay may be challenging for a lot of the students, and so I think travel, the gas money or bus money. And then just rewarding them, I think, and being grateful for the work that they provide to our office. And so I think that was the intent behind being able to have the authority to issuing them a flat stipend.
Okay. I mean, I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate what you're trying to do. I'm going to cast a friendly no, simply because I think that.
It's for the kids and the
right,
college students that
college
volunteer their free volunteer their free time to serve our constituents.
Well, I appreciate it very much, but no, I do not hate young people. That's absurd. It's the kind of chattering in my ear that I have to listen to all the time. No, I understand that it's by district and at the discretion of the council member, and I do appreciate that. However, I guess would take more of a conservative tack on this and say, well, if somebody spends money, and I realize it's just budget dust, but if someone spends money to go somewhere and needs to be reimbursed, I think I would support a reimbursement and not a stipend. So I'll be casting a friendly no vote today.
How did you come up with budget dust?
It's not mine.
Okay.
It's not my
I'm just
term.
curious about it's very good.
Hey, Councilmember Soria, I was going to ask a follow-up question off of Councilman Olivier's, and because I'm not sure I heard the answer in there either. So the $500, like say for instance, if you had two volunteers, could you pay them both a stipend of both $500 or $500 capped per council district?
You have the discretion. It's per intern, so you would have that discretion.
So you could have 5 interns and pay them all $500 a month.
That would be up to your discretion. It just to give each council member enough flexibility.
I'm sorry, point of order. I thought that when I asked
Yeah.
you that question, you said it was $500 for all,
Right.
and now it's $500 per intern that could be paid out
Yeah,
per month.
yeah.
So if you have 4 interns, that's a possibility of $2,000.
Yeah, that's up to your discretion.
Sure.
That's just setting, you know, a cap on it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So,
In terms, we have a $1 billion budget.
well, yeah.
Here's Clint picking on something small, but I think it's.
And also, in reality, Councilman Olivier, it's still, that is within her discretionary district council budget. So, I mean, in a way, it's not like we're adding something new to the City of Fresno budget. You would just choose to pay a stipend rather than do some other repair in your district.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I just needed the clarifications because I heard it different when you said it to Councilman Olivier. So it's $500 per month per intern.
Max. And
Okay.
it's again to the discretion of the council member. You don't have to provide a stipend to your
Don't
intern
worry.
if you don't want to. I'll make sure to let all these
District 7, you're going to work for free.
All right, thank you.
Your intern pool just dried up. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. So, listen, correct me if I'm wrong, City Attorney. Does this add any money to our budgets?
No, this would come from within your existing appropriation.
No, I know all the answers to these questions I'm going to ask. So this doesn't actually add any money to our budget, right?
That's correct.
And a council member doesn't have to pay an intern
That's
if
correct.
they so choose not to. This simply just gives a council member the flexibility, should they choose to, well, it gives the council member the flexibility, just like we have the flexibility to provide proclamations and resolutions for people to do all kinds of things for the community. This gives us a little bit more flexibility to how we want to operate and run our office, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, City Attorney.
It's not even prevailing wage.
It's not even prevailing wage.
Turning off your mic.
Has there already been a motion, Councilmember Soria? You have? Okay.
She makes a motion.
Okay, good.
Second.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I was going to double motion it
Did
to
you
make sure,
second?
because I support the children.
Member Capriolio.
So would this information be privileged to that particular district, so there's not a lot of pressure on other districts to match your generosity?
There's no pressure. We all have
Privilege? Would it be a privileged communication between you and your staffers?
Yeah.
It would be public information.
Well, it becomes public once you make it.
And I guess that's it. Nobody else has punched up. Member Soria, do you have anything to add, or?
Just ask
Okay.
for your support.
Okay, I do have another question. Because we're going to be, and this is for, I guess, city manager. Do these people now become employees? Do they have to go through HR and file applications? And is there any management cost for this?
No.
None at all.
No.
So okay.
But if you wonder why Aubrey comes to work for the city manager's office, you may figure that one out.
You know what? Just for that, I'm taking her pay down a notch. Just kidding. All right, the screen is clear. Let's go ahead and vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Do it electronically.
Okay. You think I may have the votes, Member Soria?
It's a dusty day, my friend.
The Grinch.
Okay. Moving on. The next one is closed session. City Attorney?
Yes, in closed session, we have two matters, existing litigation, H.H. Fresno versus City of Fresno, and also deciding whether to initiate litigation, Fresno versus Davis, concerning 496 East Sample. I would not expect any announcement afterwards.
No, you still got it for your 25-minute. Hey, Clint.